All right. Welcome to the Wizard of Radical Self Respect, everyone. Today is going to be a very serious episode, and there's going to be a trigger warning on this because we are going to talk a lot about youth suicide. And the guest today, Gilligan, he has a very powerful story, and he's trying to do something really good and admirable with a terrible situation that had happened to him. And I'll let him explain what that terrible situation was. But Gilligan, thanks for coming on the show today. How are you?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jared. I'm great.
Well, I'm great. I'm grateful to have this opportunity to talk to you to get this message out here because it is really important. So, take us back, I guess, about 5 years ago, and your daughter, she's talking to you about being bullied, I guess, right? But I'll let you take it from there.
Sure. Um, so 5 years ago, she was in a smaller town setting. Um, she loved school. She was, your basic 12-year-old little girl at the time. She loved life. She loved her friends. She was just absolutely happy. Um, she was living with her grandparents at the time because I was in a different state of mind than what I am now. Um, I got her on the weekends. I got her every other week in the summer. And so her grandparents had to move. They moved into a more densely populated city, more kids, more cliques, more everything. And she would come home every now and then talking about, Dad, what do I do if I get hit by somebody when I'm not doing anything? And of course, as a girl dad, I'm saying, well, you better hit them back. Well, that only happens, once. The next time it was brought up in conversation, she said, Dad, I did what you told me to do, and it only got me jumped. Um, so I can't do that. Um, and she would do, numerous acts to get put into, um, um, I'm sorry, to get suspended, to get put in anywhere else it was school. She would act up when I know that it was just, it wasn't like her. She wasn't the one to act up. Um, and she would just, I think before everything happened, they were even trying to get her to go to an alternative school in another county, in a bigger county. That way it was out of school. But, you know, after that second time of me hearing that, I said, well, honey, you know, I'll go up to the school if you want me to. No, Dad, don't go to the school. I'm like, well, honey, I need to do something about it. And then, so March 3rd, 2019, she turned 13. And I called her grandparents, and I said, hey, Miss Colleen, that was her name. I said, may I speak to Natalie? You know, it's her 13th birthday. You know, she's grown into womanhood. Can't wait to talk to her. And when she answered the phone, she was hysterically just bawling. And I said, what's going on? And she said, James, she's gone. And I said, okay, well, where'd she go? And she couldn't say anything. And I said, Colleen, calm down. I said, no matter where she's at, I promise you, we'll find her. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go, but we'll find her. It'll be okay. And that's when she blurted out, James, no, she's gone. She took her life last night. And that's when I just went off the deep end.
Terrible. And she was only 13 at the time when she did this.
Yes, sir.
And did she ever speak to you about like what the specifics of she was bullied about or anything along those lines?
Not really, no. And the only thing that I could ever think is that she was just this beautiful, bright young kid. And, you know, she had people that were jealous of it, or maybe she had stuff because she had more than what most kids would have. And then maybe they got jealous of that, or just it wasn't any kind of depression or anything like that, because when I tell you she was the happiest kid 24/7, I'm telling you there was never not a smile on that girl's face. And it drastically changed from going to one school to another.
So do you think also like friends, like not having good friends was an issue with it too? Like kind of being on the outside looking in?
Most definitely. Because like I said, there were bigger cliques, there was more people. In the smaller setting where she was at, she only had a handful of friends that were only doing this, that, and the other. Whereas you go to a bigger place, there's more to do, there's more people. Um, so she probably got taken down the wrong path with the wrong people. And then, just getting into it with other kids, this, that, and the other, and basically, you know, a bad situation happening.
Sure. And it was mostly girls. The girls were doing the bullying too. It wasn't boys, it was girls.
No. Um, after after she passed away, I had a numerous, and I'm talking about at least 10 to 15 little girls call me and say, "I have no idea what to do. Your daughter was always the one to let me cry on her shoulder. She was always there to give me advice. And now that she's not there, I don't know what to do. I guess I'm just going to end my own life." And that's when I had to say, hold on, no, 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 no. That's not what I want. That's not what she wants. And I promise you, that's not what you want. Yeah, well, she did it. Why can't I? And I'm like, honey, I think she didn't mean to. As crazy as that sounds, I think it was an accident. I think she didn't really know the repercussions, like there's no coming back from it. And she took it a little bit too far and wasn't able to come back.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that is a possibility where when someone's 13, they just don't understand the full implications and consequences of what they're doing. And like you said, she, not to be too graphic about it, but she had hung herself in her closet. And just to think, how did she even know to do that? I don't know if it's a social media thing and people maybe talk about that on social media. I don't know. But and the fact that she was that young, I don't know if most people think of that, like that occurring for kids before high school. And you were telling me before we went live here
Mm.
about the percentages and the numbers of youth suicides. Perhaps you can talk about that a little bit too.
Yeah. So the percentages is it's 11th in the United States. In the state of Tennessee, it is the third leading cause of death. Um, and I told you earlier, but I'm not exactly sure. It's either in the state of Tennessee or the United States. The kids, the youth, anywhere between the ages of 10 or 11 to the ages of 18 or 19, every 2.5 minutes take their own life. One.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I
And
think like even like what would help kids in that scenario, because we talked about this before too, that there comes a point when kids don't want to talk to their parents and like keep it real with them a lot of times. And sometimes parents don't want to hear that, but it is true a lot of times, right? Where kids get to a certain age and perhaps puberty around is that age where they're just not going to keep it real as much with their parents anymore. So I think like one of the things you were saying your foundation may do, because you started a foundation that's in the thumbnail, but just helping them find someone to talk to, like an
mhm.
older mentor, like a high school kid or a college kid, someone in the younger 20s, someone that like isn't an old adult that they're not going to be able to identify with or relate to, but someone who's closer to them in age that they can just keep it real with and like talk about their issues, because that is one thing. Knowing what you know now, I guess, is there anything you could have done differently or would have done differently, I should say? Like, do you think, I guess, like if someone else is in this scenario now, like, and their kids being bullied, and
Mm,
not that they want to think the worst would happen, but I guess what would you say to them?
love them love them like it's their last day every day. If there's anything I could say, it's that if they are acting just the littlest bit off of key and they don't want to talk to you, because kids don't want to. I remember it, I didn't want to talk to my mom and my dad when something was happening at school with another guy or something. I'd come home with a bloody nose. Hey, who did that? Nobody. Leave me alone.
Right.
um so if they just say, hey, if there's something going on, you don't have to tell me, but you do have to tell somebody.
Yeah,
They've got to
talking
get it off
about it
their
is key.
chest.
Like just talking about it with anybody would be key. Where there's an expression like pain shared is
Yep.
pain lessened, and I
Yep.
think in this kind of regard, it is more important and pertinent than ever that that's true, because, and I don't necessarily want to scare parents, but I want them to know the realities too, that yeah, kids this young could possibly do this. Because I think a lot of parents wouldn't even think it. Like they wouldn't even think to be worried about it. But the numbers say otherwise. And I think social media probably, and they do know this, social media has a significantly worse impact on young girls
Huge.
than it does on boys. So, because that's the other thing you were saying too. Like before, I don't know how you old you are, but I'm 38. When I
Same.
was when I was growing up, and your daughter has the same birthday as me too, March 3rd.
Hmm.
Um, when I was growing up, you could escape it by like going home. Like
Yep.
once you left school, the nonsense was gone. You could still have to go back to it the next day, but
Yeah.
most of the nonsense was gone. Nowadays, there really isn't any escaping.
24/7.
Like, was she on like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok,
She was
Snap,
she was on them all.
on them all?
She was on them all. Yeah. And
And do you think
that's what
some of the
that go ahead.
do you think some of
Sorry.
the bullying happened on there too, or is it mostly in person?
I want to say it's a little bit of both. I honestly couldn't tell you an answer to that without lying to you, because I honestly don't know. But um, it's like I said, back when we were growing up, you could escape it by going home. When now, if something happens at school, then boom, it's on social media. You did something like this, that, or the other. Oh my gosh, she did that. Oh my gosh, he did that. Da 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 da
Right.
da. And there's no escaping it. It's with you from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed.
So, you've had to deal with this, and how have you been dealing with it? Because I'm sure it's probably gotten hasn't gotten much easier for you. I know they say, especially when it's a kid of yours, that the pain doesn't go away ever. But you perhaps
It's
maybe learned a different way to deal with it, perhaps. But perhaps you could talk about that too, because you're certainly not the only one that's lost a kid. Just maybe not for the same reason you did, but a lot of people lose kids. So, how have you been able to deal with it?
it's taken time and a lot of God, because where I was at, um, I knew I had a relationship with God, but it wasn't the best. And it took a really strong relationship, knowing that if I do what I'm supposed to, I'm going to see her again. Um, Maybe not for a while, but at some point in time, I get to see and be with her again. Um, and time, it just takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of talking about it, you know, because it took years for me to even be able to mention her name without bawling my eyes out completely. So I just made it a point to pull it off like a band-aid and talk about her to everybody as much as I could. That way I could start saying her name and have it in a conversation.
Sure.
And it it helped. Man, did it help. And the more I talked about her, the more it got in my head. You know what? This is what she wants. This is what and the way I took it is that God took her for me to help uh, countless amounts of other youth, people, anybody who's dealing with any kind of situation, no matter whether it be suicidal thoughts, whether it be drugs, whether it be things going on in your life that you can't get a hold of and grasp. Me and my foundation are here to talk.
And I think what you're doing, it's a smart thing to do. It's a wise thing to do to be able to take all of that pain and try to turn it into something like good. And I've seen like mothers that have lost sons to ODs. They'll go on a crusade to try to prevent overdoses. So I think there is a recipe there for if you've had some really terrible things happen in your life, try to do something positive with it. And it's not to say like, oh, just get over it. Like, no, there is no just getting over it, right? I
So,
think it's just integrating and trying to like work with it somehow and say, okay, what would she want? Right? What would Natalie want in this
right,
situation? And then try to do something like that. Because like you said, that is the best way to look at it. You think, I lost my daughter, but maybe I'll at least be able to help other people perhaps not lose their children. And I think that's really one of the best ways to go about it. Like once it's already happened, what other option is there? Like what other good way to look at it would there be?
you're exactly right. You know, the way to look at it and the way to be about it is help as many people as you can. And that's what I'm here to try to do. I'm taking a horrible thing that's happened to me, and I'm turning it into good. And like we said, what we're really trying to do is get somebody in the school that can talk to these kids, because I feel like if a person, the people that we're getting certified to go into these schools, if somebody was like that, was in my daughter's school, she might still be here, because no, she didn't want to talk to me, but hey, she might have wanted to talk to this person,
Sure.
and that person could have did this, that, given her resources on what she needed to do.
So this certification that people are going through, could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. It's the I'm trying to think of what it is. It's the mental health, um, teen mental health program. And what it does is teaches it teaches an adult, or teaches anybody, to be able to talk to kids and help them with any situations they might be having at home, at school, anything like that, and to be able to cope with it a little bit better, excuse me, than what they were able to. Um, and the certification enables you to go into the schools instead of, because that's where everything happens. And, you know, uh, some children aren't as blessed as others. And it's like my wife told me the other day, and it's another thing that we're trying to do is be able to have somebody that these kids can talk to help them out, because she told me a story that, she would get F's on projects because she didn't have anybody who cared. She didn't have the funds to do a gingerbread house, or she didn't have tampons when she needed them. And it broke my heart because, that's stuff that that kids can feed off of for bullying. And if we can, start at least putting some kind of money in schools, or just any way to help these kids out to where they don't have to say it in front of everybody, like, hey, I need help with this, I don't have enough money to do this, or you know do you mind helping me with this, that, or the other, they're able to use that and actually get good grades on something that they shouldn't have gotten an F for in the first place.
Right. I think that would be really good because all of those things, like you said, whether it's not having the funds to get something for a project or something tampon related, etc., those are all things kids get bullied for. So if
Mhm.
you can eliminate those things, then I think that would be great too. And this is not even to say we haven't talked about this part yet, but like the kids who are doing the bullying. I think a lot of the parents of the kids that are doing the bullying, they would probably say, "Oh, never my kid. My kid would never do that." But no, it is your kid doing that. And kids in particular, they can be extremely cruel. And like I could only imagine what those girls that did that to her and bullied her now, what they may think now. But perhaps they've learned a very valuable lesson like, hey, this is what can happen sometimes if you treat people badly enough. Like sometimes, especially when people are young and they don't understand the consequences, they can do something permanent and it becomes a tragedy.
Yeah, so like number one of being a parent, you've got to watch everything you do, because if you're going to be mean to this person in front of your kid, then that kid is going to be mean to another person in school. And then if you be mean to that kid, then because, man, honestly, my wife, you know she has went through years of counseling because of stuff that has happened to her as a kid, and to a point that she's blocked it out and doesn't even remember it. But that stuff like that is what hurts kids enough to go to school and be a totally different person, to somebody who's not even doing anything. And you know, it just it breaks my heart, man. But the thing is that if if you can just if we can just save one person, one kid, then it was all worth it.
Well, I think between the person that's going to get that certification, having funds to do some of this stuff, and like having like parents talk to their kids this and I think this is important for the parents too to know that yeah, they might not want to talk to you about exactly what's going on, and that's fine. Like that should be fine too. You don't want to bully them or push the kid into talking to you when
Right,
they just maybe don't want to. But stressing the importance of, if not me, talk to somebody. Because
right.
there are people out there that will help. There are like avenues.
Hmm.
Um, and I think maybe it comes down to just spreading some awareness about what some of those avenues are. And that would depend on the location. Like Tennessee would have different things than New Jersey, where I
Right.
am. But there are like programs like Big Brothers Big Sisters program, for example.
Hmm.
I used to volunteer for that, and I would mentor a kid. So I don't know if that's in every state or not, but things like that, and perhaps like this, the person with the credential, the certification that your foundation is going to be doing.
Hmm.
Anybody, right? It doesn't matter who. It
Yeah.
just matters that you talk to
Look at
somebody.
somebody, get it out. you know. Um, and man, I had something in my head and I totally forgot.
That's all right. It'll come to you. It'll come to you. But what was I going to
Mm-mm-mm.
say about it? So basically, the conversations are key. Like just being able to talk about things like this, and kids when their frontal lobes in their brain aren't fully developed yet, they don't understand it's a permanent solution to what could be and should be a temporary problem, right? These
Mm,
things, it can seem overwhelming when you're a kid,
mm.
and it can seem like it's the end of the world. But a little time goes by, and you look back, and you're like, "Oh, okay, that was just whatever." But
I remember those days, man. Your girlfriend broke up with you and you thought it was the end of the world,
right,
Um, the thing that I was going to say is that it's a hard subject to talk about. Man, it's hard. And I know a lot of people don't touch on it because nobody wants to talk about it because if it's not happening to their kid, then it doesn't matter. But the thing is that if we don't do something about it soon, you won't have to worry about it anymore because it might be your kid.
right.
And
You
the
know what?
thing is that there's nothing that, there's nothing in the schools right now that helps these kids besides just a guidance counselor, and that's it.
Not enough. Guidance counselor is not enough. And
No.
plus the guidance counselor is an adult, right? They got their degree or whatever it is.
Yep.
But that's not the person that they might be able to open up to like that. It could be that person, but it might not always be that person. Where I think someone closer in age, another kid, they might understand in a way that a guidance counselor couldn't. And I'm not trying to discourage people from talking to the guidance counselor, but
Yeah.
like
No,
there's whatever helps them do it is what that's what I would be for.
that's exactly right. And the thing is that, and I'm not saying that's about all. It's like you said, I'm not discouraging talking to the guidance counselor. Please get it out if you got to talk about it. But the thing is that guidance counselors are paid by the schools, and that they more than likely don't want to be there as much as the young kids do. Um, and we want to put somebody in the schools that has a situation in life and they are have coped with it, that can talk to these kids and can mentor and put them somewhere where they can open up to them and they can figure out what's going on and be able to talk to them to say, hey, you know what, you need some help with this, we're here to help, you know let's do this, that, or the other.
I think what also doesn't help is the reason why we met even too. It's because of money, I think, where sometimes people think, well, not much money to be made in talking about that, so I'm not going to talk about it.
That's
And I
critical.
think like on YouTube doesn't like people talking about this, and they'll demonetize any video that someone talks about and like says this word suicide. They'll exit out. So it's like because they just want to be brand friendly, and I'm like, sometimes things are more important than just being brand friendly. Sometimes things are more important than being advertiser friendly and money friendly. I choose to believe things like this are more important than that. And like you were trying to go on Facebook and talk to this one person that was going to try to help people get their message out. But again, they didn't want to help you unless you have a certain amount of money to like get in front of them. And
Yeah.
like I hate that myself. I mean, I get it on one hand, it's a business, but on the other hand, it's like it certainly only helps some people. And I think people like you, like your message should be one of the messages being amplified because like I said, I was surprised. I'm still surprised that it's as prevalent as it is before high school. Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, it needs to be talked about, not to scare people, but just to make them aware that this is what's going on.
and that's what most people don't get, because they're trying to live in a bubble of everything's going to be fine, and that's what we're trying to say. The other day, I saw where 11 or 12-year-old girl took her life right in front of a cop. He was coming to help her, and I don't know the logistics of it, but all I saw was that she took her own life right in front of him. And my
You have a gun or
wife's
something? Oh, you don't know.
I don't know, and I'd hate to say it wrong,
Right.
um, but I know she took her life right in front of the cop. And then my wife saw a couple of days ago that at a young age of, I want to say it was 7 or 8, it's getting horrible, and if we don't act on it, no matter, and it's like you said, it's because you can't make money off of it, but guess what, if people don't open their eyes and figure out that bullying is a prevalent thing and it happens everywhere to a an amazing amount of kids, that if we don't do something about it soon, it's going to get even worse than what it is, and it's already horrible.
Right. I think one of the other good things, besides talking to people, and then this could be a part of talking to people too, but like getting kids signed up in something like jujitsu or
Mhm.
some form of martial arts, because that does several things, really. It gives people like a community, a
Yeah.
place for people to go and talk to. It can
Mhm.
teach them self defense, which would also probably enhance their self esteem and sense of
Mhm.
self worth. It just accomplishes a lot of things at once.
Mhm.
And, sometimes maybe funds could be an issue for that kind of thing. But I think there's a lot of schools, like jujitsu schools, for example, that if they hear a story like this, especially one with bullying, a lot of them have a similar story too, right? A lot of these guys that run these academies,
Mhm.
they've been there. Like
Yep.
they understand this more than most. So if like this is an issue for people, I'm pretty sure they'd be the kinds of people that would try to work with you somehow. And I highly recommend this, like, because it ticks a bunch of boxes, right?
Yeah.
Exercise, community, self
Yep.
defense,
Yep.
and like, and it's not to say violence is an answer or something. That's not the point of it, right? It's like it's
Right.
always good to be able to defend yourself anyway.
Right.
Being a girl, guy, doesn't matter who. But
Mhm.
doing something like that, I think that could also really help.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I took 5 years of kickboxing when I was younger, probably about her age, and it helped me with the man I am today. And I don't mean as far as fighting. I mean, it taught me self-respect. It taught me respect. I hold doors. I say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, and that's the way we had brought Natalie up. She was a very respectful little girl, and it gets people together. It teaches you self-discipline. It teaches you discipline. It teaches you how to fend for yourself. So yeah, I agree on that as well, for sure.
So like the guy was saying, Amber Nicole says she agrees. She said it was an 8-year-old boy who did that the other day. And like I said, it's just madness that that's like even happening, right? And talking about this will be key. Like even like this social media stuff, because there's something going on right now in particular where I think these kids are being exposed to things, ideas, maybe adult content, or maybe all sorts of stuff that kids from previous generations just never got exposed to.
Mm.
Like things like even like pornography, for example, right? That was like hard to come by for most
Yeah,
people
it
at a
was.
certain time.
When
But
I was, it was.
nowadays but nowadays it's everywhere. It's
Yeah.
everywhere. And I think like social media is a new experiment. Like we don't have long-term data on what social media does to a developmenting brain. And I think I mean, maybe this kind of thing is becoming more prevalent now, and maybe in no small part because of social media, right? It could certainly be contributing here. And I guess, what are your thoughts on this too? So, say a kid comes to their parents and says they're getting bullied. What would your suggestions be in that case?
Well, it's definitely changed since when I had Natalie, because and I'll be the first to tell you, being a girl dad, I told her, just if somebody hits you, hit them back. But I don't teach that anymore. If you're getting picked on in school to a point where you're having bad thoughts about it, you really just need to talk to somebody. There's many different things that you can do. Um, you can be taken to a charter school. You can be homeschooled. Um, as far as the other kids, I don't know anything that can be done to other kids, because there's not too much of a stipulation on that stuff right now. I mean, it should be, if you're doing something, then you should be able to. If you're doing something to somebody else, you should be able to get them kicked out. But the thing is, have a good support system, have somebody there for them to talk to, because it's what you've got to get it out, because the built up pressure is what hurts them,
Like I always say, pain shared is pain lessened. And even some of those little silly slogans about suicide, they've helped me in my own life. Things like suicide doesn't end the pain, it only transfers it to somebody else. And I mean, situations like this kind of show that too, a little bit. A permanent solution to a temporary problem. And of course, some of this is mental health related too. Like, and social media can contribute to mental health. Trauma can contribute to mental health. I mean, and bullying can contribute to trauma. So there's all of these factors that could be coming into play. It's hard to necessarily blame just one, but I think they may all contribute to an extent. But regardless of what the issues were, it's like the solutions are the same. Like the solutions are talk to somebody.
right.
Solutions are get out there and do something different. And
Right.
be honest. You got to be like keep it real and be honest with at least one person.
Right.
And it's not to say that's like a bulletproof cure, but it really freaking helps to
Start
have just
somewhere.
like one person. And I will say, like having the people that are going to be getting the certification that your foundation is working with, that's awesome. Talking to a guidance counselor, martial arts, or just any kind of like extracurricular activity, whether it's like music, art, sports, something, right? Something. All that can help.
You still there?
Yep. I'm still here, but now you're
I'm
back.
sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah. It's everything. You know, talking to the kids, whether it be an extracurricular activity out of school, you know, um, I'll tell you what, it's like I got so many of those calls from her friends afterwards, and all those kids are still in our lives. It doesn't necessarily have to be your kid. You know, if you've got kids and they've got friends and you don't see that light in them that should be in that little kid's eyes, then say, hey, what's up, man? Or hey, what's up, girl? Talk to them, because as a kid you need to be happy. you know
No, definitely. And like, I think it's a great thing that you're doing to try to turn this tragedy into something positive, like something like to help other people with it. And if people wanted to learn more about your foundation, and it's called what?
It's called the Natalie Lyle Foundation. We named it right after her. Um,
Yeah.
if if they wanted to find out more about it, they would come to our Facebook page, um, which is the Natalie Lyle Foundation. We are just getting started. So we're really a baby in the foundation. But we got to start somewhere, and we'll have a .com soon. We're registered, we're licensed. We've got many forms of payments that can be given that go all to those packages that I told you about to help kids out, that go to certification for people to get into schools, because we've only got one person certified to go in. That we haven't even gotten into schools yet, honestly. We're still working on that, but it's going to go to somewhere, to help some kids somewhere. I promise you that.
And I think getting the ability to work with the schools is important because I know that's the thing with schools is they're difficult to work with. Like they have like a very strict credentialed kind of system
Yep.
that those are people they let work with them and they can be pretty strict about it. Even like having speakers come in. And maybe that's something you could probably do too to get the word
Mhm.
out of this if they would have you is to share her story, to
Yeah.
share the story of all this at like middle schools, high schools, probably not elementary schools, but maybe elementary schools, but like middle schools and high schools, you go around and you can talk to people about this kind of thing and like have the kids hear it and think I think that would touch them in a way that maybe something else just wouldn't. Like maybe they hear stories and whatever, but hearing a firsthand account that can really hit home.
Um, you know, I didn't tell you this, but the way it happened was her and her friend actually did it together. That they weren't together, but her friend did it the same night that she did it as well.
And like she did too.
Yes. Yeah, they were both 13. It wasn't the other girl's birthday, but yeah, they were both 13 years old and they did it together
And they both successfully did it.
successfully. Yes, sir.
That's crazy. So it makes me wonder also how they even figured it out to do it or like to do it to completion even at that age. Like that's just
Yeah.
mind-boggling. But that speaks to the gravity of this whole situation here. This is how important it can be. And no parents would think, "Oh yeah, it'd be my daughters that do that packed plan." Like no one wants to think that. No one
No.
wants to think that, but it does happen. And I think that's why it needs to be talked about.
I just wanted to say what we're getting people certified in is called the Teen Mental Health First Aid course, which teaches the youth to acknowledge mental health issues within themselves and within their peers. How to address those issues, such as talking to peers and knowing when and how to seek and or ask help from a safe and healthy adult.
So yeah, that sounds like a good thing. And I know people that they go around the high schools now and they talk about like drugs, alcohol,
Hmm.
nicotine stuff.
Yep.
But perhaps he would be someone for you to speak to. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if you're interested in talking to kids like this in front of a school, but it might be one of the possibility, like the options that you have available to you. And so the Natalie Lyle Foundation, that's where they would find you on Facebook.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, I highly encourage anyone to check out this page here and then see how they're able to help if they can. Because I think the being able to have funds for those little things, whether it's like for a school project or some other kind of personal hygiene type issue, I mean, kids get bullied for that stuff because kids are extremely mean. And that's the other thing that surprised me about this story was you're in Tennessee. Like, I
Mm,
think from the north, as a Yankee, as you guys would say, that like Tennessee is like a nice place, like all the southern hospitality.
mm.
But goes to show you, kids can be bullies and mean anywhere you go.
Yes, sir. And it's like I said, I don't know the statistics of every state, but this one, it's third. It's third leading cause of kids 12 to 18. It's third leading cause from 18 to 25, and it's out of control, man. And you know, like I said, if we don't get a grip on it now before it spirals even more, which I see it happening very soon, then it's going to be too late. And we're not going to be able to get a grip on it like we would have if we did it when we should have.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that where this is all uncharted territory for a lot of people in terms of like social media and bullying and stuff. And people don't know how the kids are going to respond. This might be one of those canary in a coal mine type situations where it's like an early indicator of some bad stuff going down. So, like I said, this is why it's important to talk about it, regardless of all the money type issues that are out there. This is something to be talked about and to at least be aware of because you just don't know. People don't know, and parents don't want to think it's their kid that might do this or might have the mental health issues or being through. They don't want to hear it, they don't want to think it, but it can be their kid and it can be your kid too doing the bullying as well. It can go both ways. So I think
Exactly right.
conversations and knowing that they're watching you, like your kids, they watch how you talk to people, they watch how you treat the mom and dad, siblings, cousins, grandparents. They watch how you treat all of them. And they know more than you think they know. Like they see it and they remember. So, like the same patterns that you do in your life, your kids will probably repeat them to others. So, like if you're some sort of narcissistic bully or something, and that's what you're modeling for your kid, well, wouldn't you can't be surprised if they start doing that to other kids at school. But this is why it's all connected. And with social media, it's ironic that it connects people like all over the world, social media. But at the same point, I think a lot of the connections are a little more shallow and it like disconnects people in their day-to-day life a little bit. So social media definitely a double-edged sword. And I this might be one of the things that starts coming up more frequently with kids. So it's important to be talking about it and trying to get in front of it like you and your foundation are trying to do.
Mhm. I agree.
So one
Go
more
ahead.
thing here. They can bully you for hygiene, but they can also bully out of envy. Overall, they don't have any grounds because you can never please them. Yeah. I mean, the girl in the thumbnail is his daughter that committed suicide on her, I guess it was 13th birthday, my birthday, March 3rd.
Yeah.
And she was a very pretty girl. Looked fun, energetic, pretty, all these good things. And yet it was her that did it. And she made the pact with this other girl to do it. So, do you talk to that other girl's family at all?
We did after it happened a little bit. Um, but of course, as time went on, we had different lives and, just kind of split ways. Uh, uh, and it all depends on how you take it, because like her mother took it a different way, and she let it take her and keep her down a horrible path. And I don't know if she's ever going to get out of it, and it breaks my heart. But I took it and flipped it around to try to help as many as I can.
Sure.
But that girl is exactly right. She was a very pretty girl. She was into everything you could think of. She had a little bit more than others at that school because number one, I always wanted her, I wanted her to have more than what I had when I was growing up. I wanted her to have everything. I mean, just as every father would their kid if they didn't have that much growing up, they want them to have everything. And so if she was probably, wearing, name brand stuff to school and, had this, that, or the other. And, other kids don't like that. If they don't have it, they want it. Or, I mean, it's just multiple things, and
So it can
it's
go
like,
both ways, right? It can
yeah,
be
yeah,
good things,
it can go
bullied
both
for that.
ways. You're exactly right.
Not good enough, we can get bullied for that too.
That's exactly right. And
So it's it's something else, that's for sure. And
yeah,
I mean, grief is it's a lot to get through. Like I've known people, like I've had ex-girlfriends before that, like her boyfriend before me committed suicide. And I saw that. Cause I met that girl like not that long after it happened, like 4 months after it happened. And
mm,
he hung himself in his backyard. And I saw like how that grief process went down. And it got worse really before it got better. Like she kind of was in like some sort of not disassociated state, but kind of like numbed it over for a little bit. And then like after a year, that's when it really seemed to kind of hammer at her again. And she really began to feel it. And then she started feeling like suicidal herself because it's a lot to go through. And I bet you parents that lose someone to an OD, they probably go through something similar where, I mean, it sucks to lose a kid no matter how you lose it, right?
mm,
Whether it's with ending their own life, drugs, a car accident, it's terrible regardless the reason. And I mean, I don't think there is like a right or wrong way to go through grief as long as it's not too self-destructive, right? Because that doesn't really help too much. But like I would say just feel the emotions, right? Feel what you feel. There's no wrong way to feel, but
you've got to grieve. After it happened, like I said, I wasn't in the best state of mind, and I tried subconsciously so many times to end my own life because I didn't have my kid. And so, what was the reason of life? Because
right,
you love someone for so long, so much, so hard, and you don't have that love anymore. Then you don't want it anywhere else. You just rather be with them. At least you think you would be with them. And so that led me down a path of, a lot of drugs afterwards, trying to kill myself,
sure,
and which eventually leaded me real quick 2 weeks afterwards right into jail. And I didn't get that grieving process. I didn't get that grieving process at all until I got out. And when
right,
I got out, I had to peel that band-aid off as much as possible because I could not say her name without just completely just losing it and just, almost going back into a point of, you know, uh, disassociation. And that's when that's when, Natalie kind of flickered that light on in me and said, "Hey, you know what? Instead of being like this, why don't you say my name as much as possible? Get our story out there and help other people." And then that's when it hit me. That's what I got to do.
right. And I think that's pretty common too when it comes to grief. People turn to drugs, drinking, or some other form of escape. I think that's a lot of people do that.
Got to
And
numb it.
it probably just masks it, right? It pushes it off
Yep.
to later, but
Okay.
eventually, the pain will come to the surface,
Yep.
and like you got to feel it to heal it. And I would say, I don't think there is any healing it, right? It's like no, they're gone, they're gone, and there's always going to be that pain. You just learn how to deal with it, and I used to watch this show a lot called 6 Feet Under. I'm not sure if you ever heard of that or not, but it was a show on HBO that this family ran a funeral home. And at the beginning of every episode, there would be a death. And I learned a lot about grief from watching that show and just like how the various kinds of people dealt with it. But it's a part of it that, one part of this story is the suicide prevention part of the story. Another part of the story is like dealing with grief and what do people do when they've lost a kid. And I think one of the lines they say in that show is there's a term for losing everyone, like an orphan or etc. But there is no term for when a parent loses a kid because they say it's too awful to even name. But there's a name like when you lose your husband or wife, you're a widow, right? But there is no name for when you lose a child. So it's a painful thing, and I think your example, if anyone else out there has lost a child for whatever reason, trying to turn that pain and those wounds into something good. As soon as not to say, like, oh, it happened for a reason. No, I'm not saying that. It's like, no, it happened. So maybe now that it's happened, try to do something with it. Because what else would you do? Like, what other options are there?
Right. And it's like you said, turning it around. I didn't want her, if I would have let the grief take me over, which is very easy because it could have, um, and I could be, I couldn't be here right now, but I turned it around because, I don't want it to happen to somebody else
Right.
because the hurt that I still feel to this day, even though I'm doing good stuff in her name and I'm very happy with what we're doing with the foundation, it still hurts me. I do not and would not wish that on my worst enemy because it is, no parent should ever bury their child.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the worst things that could happen. And a lot of parents, they don't even want to think about it. Right? They wouldn't even want to dream of this kind of scenario. But I think it happens now, maybe more than ever. Besides from a war scenario, like there's drugs. This happens to a lot.
Mhm.
Mental health reasons. This is happening a lot. So it needs to be talked about. It needs to be addressed, and getting on top of it on any way that we can. That's the way through this. But this is an issue. And I think if anyone's like me, they would be surprised to hear that it is such an issue before high school, even. Like, I didn't know. I didn't think that they would even like know how, let alone know enough to follow through with it and do it to completion. I That blows me away.
I used to be that parent
Right.
because I loved Natalie so much. Um, Having her was like, um, it was everything to me. And I can remember so many times in my head, when something would happen to another kid, and I would think, Never to me, that'll never be me, you know." And when it happened, I was like, wow, it's me. I'm that person that I
Right.
thought it would never happen to, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get awareness out there because if you don't get people to know what's going on out there and what's happening, then they don't know about it, and then it's a shock when this is happening, or it's a shock when that is happening. When if you just would have opened your eyes a little bit sooner, you could have prevented something that ended up being a horrible situation.
Definitely. Definitely. Because I'm sure it probably put you into a state of shock and like knocked the wind out of you, like when you heard about that. I mean, as it would anybody in that case. And what happens then? It's crazy because you probably go into like a whirlwind where your head's just like it can hardly process what you just heard. But eventually, I guess it sinks in, and then the reality sinks in, and you're like, oh, this is what's happened here. So now, what do you do?
Yeah, and that's what happened, when she said, she's gone. And in my head, of course, it doesn't mean that she's gone forever.
Yeah.
She's gone down the road. She's gone with a friend. She's ran away, because I remember a couple of times that her, saying she wanted to run away, because of stuff that was happening. And so my brain masks it as she's still here and you'll still get to see her again, but not just right now. And so that's why my brain just calm down, please, please. We'll find her. I don't know how, I don't know where. And then when it hits you, it's something that you've loved so much in your life to a point that that's all you cared about in life, that you don't have anymore. That's when it hits you hard, and your mind just spins out of control, honestly.
How are her grandparents holding up with it?
They've never been the same since.
Yeah, I mean, because I mean, one of them found her, I would
Yep,
imagine, right?
yep, and they still stay in the same house, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean,
It was
those
to a
kind.
point. I'm sorry. It was to a point, and I understand. I totally understand, because I don't know. I don't know if I'd be in the same situation if I would have been there. But me and my family had to make the arrangements and everything because they were so disassociated with that they were zombies.
Right.
And like I said, I don't know how I would have been. So I understand where they came through, but me and my family had to make all the arrangements because they were out of it.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, that would put anyone into some like sort of tailspin or shock or something. So, but again, like this is reality.
Yeah,
Like this kind of stuff happens in reality, and it's not fun to talk about. It's painful to talk about,
fair.
but sometimes you got to have those uncomfortable conversations. So, your place, Natalie Lyle Foundation on Facebook. Is there anything else that you wanted to get out there today, or anything else you wanted to mention about your foundation?
You know, as a person, just be as kind as possible because your kids are watching your every move. Um, we have a 3-year-old Miracle because that's what she is. And she is the smartest little thing, but she mimics everything that me and her mother do. And it goes without saying that I try to be the best individual to other individuals that I can be because that's the way I want her brought up. But, you know, it breaks my heart because my daughter will never know her older sibling. She all she knows is a tombstone. And anytime we see a graveyard, she says, "Sissy, sissy." And it breaks my heart, man. Um, Look, w- we want to help kids. We will do anything that we possibly can to help them. So if you want to help the foundation out in any way, know that in any way possible, we will take whoever and we will take whatever to help as many kids and as many people as possible.
Yeah, I think you end on a good note there that kids are watching. They watch their parents, they watch their siblings, they watch how people treat others. Even if those people are like on social media, like they can see all of that now at all different levels, right? Like ratings and things. It doesn't matter anymore. You can see curse words, violent. You can see anything
Everything.
because of
Yep.
social media and the internet and smartphones. So it is something to be mindful of, and I think a lot of people don't think about it. They don't think about it as much as they should, but this is a good reason to think about it.
Resources, resources. You know, if your kid doesn't want to talk to the guidance counselor and they don't want to talk to anybody that we might be able to get in schools, which we're small time at right now, but you know, make sure they talk to somebody. You know, there's so many resources out there, and you know what? And it doesn't even have to be youth. Um, you know, if you're an older parent and your kid's into drugs, you know, have them talk to somebody. You talk to somebody. You know, there are so many resources out there to help people in this situation. All you have to do is just utter the words, I need help, and someone will help you.
Well, I think that is a good place to end it because that about sums it up. If someone needs help, talk to somebody, ask for help, and then there'll be resources available. There's resources available no matter where somebody is. So
No matter where.
look into those things and do it, right? Do it.
Yep.
So again, Gilligan, thanks for coming on here and sharing your story. I'm sure it was very uncomfortable and painful to do, but it's
It's got to
for a
happen.
great cause.
Thank you, Jared. Thank you beyond everything. Thank you. Um, it's got to get out there, no matter how much it hurts. People need to know what's going on out there. But thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. It was a
I lost you. Anyways, guys, we love you.
yep. I
I
lost.
lost you.
Yeah, I lost you too somehow. But yeah, over and out. That was the end anyway.
Thank you so much.